Welcome to the Babies in Business Podcast. Join your hosts, Rachel and Avram Gonzalez, real-life parents and business partners. Each week on Babies in Business, Rachel and Avram create a space for entrepreneurial parents to find their own way. They'll dive into insights on topics like leadership, efficiency, self-awareness, budgeting, and human psychology as they nurture their family and build their business. Here's your hosts, Avram and Rachel.
We're back with the Babies in Business podcast. It's Avram and Rachel just chilling in the garage right now, recording podcasts. We made this little space for me to escape, to be able to concentrate and do work from home. And it's been great. I have a little air conditioner out here, some other things, just a little table and a lamp. I even got this little cactus photo. Anyway, we're really off track here. This is our new podcast studio. Today we're talking pros and cons of being in business with your partner. And I think this is a fun conversation because it's also a little different for us, I think, than any other couple, and then another couple, and then another couple. Everybody has their unique thing that's going to be great or challenging
for sure
about it. But I think today we've identified some major things that I think every couple will be able to relate to.
I think so. I think it's interesting to watch people in business with their spouse and to see how they talk about them. Some people really talk about each other and they're like, he does this and it drives me crazy, or she does this and it drives me crazy. There's all these things. And then I just find myself imagining different people being in business together that are not in business.
Oh, yeah.
And it's quite comical because what a disaster that would be.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about why we think it's great to be in business together. And then we're going to talk about what is some of the more challenging things about the dynamic of being in business together and raising a family.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just start with the pros. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah, it is. Well, the thing that I love most about working with you is that we're so united in our goals on a personal level that really translates into our business. So we're united, but we're also able to find common ground in all the different things that we're doing. So I think that's a great foundation for working with each other.
Well, think about where we started. You had a business and I had a business. We were not in business together. That was before we had a family started.
Right.
And so that's been something that we've noticed has been a stark difference from where we started to being where we are now, where we're just all in.
Right.
Is that being united, that synergy with our goals. Now there's not, before it was, well, Rachel has her goal in her business. How can I support that? I have my goal in my business. How can I support that? And then we had the house and how we are together. That was many goals that we were chasing.
That was a lot. And I remember the feelings that I had during that time. It was very much, I could listen to you about your work and what you were doing, but it never really made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably vice versa for me and you on my side. So it is hard to really grasp what your partner's going through if it's a different business. Totally different.
Or if they're working a job and they have a career.
Yeah, so you don't really have that knowledge and understanding and really common ground as far as like that business that you're doing together. So it's really cool seeing, like you said, that transition, working separate and then coming together and seeing how really flawlessly it's worked. It's worked so well because we're so opposite.
Yeah. And I think life is more simple. So I think that's a huge pro to all this, is that being united in our goals. Second thing I know that we were talking about before this was that it's fun to have another project to work on together.
Yeah.
So, normally, and it's ongoing. So like the business is a fun project that Rachel and I tackle together. Like that's kind of how we see it. Yeah. The same way that you might build something in the backyard or maybe put an event together. Together? Does that work? Together? In any case, it's just a fun other activity that we get to engage in that I think if you have two different businesses, or if one person's in business and the other person's at home or got another career, you don't get to have that other fun thing to do together.
Yeah, well, and I see too, like having a baby, having a child, having another one on the way, you have conversations that you would not have if you didn't have kids.
That's right.
Working together, we have conversations that we would not have if we weren't working together. We're constantly looking at our systems and our processes and things that fall apart, or like maybe onboarding this client or that client and seeing how that worked and troubleshooting things because maybe it wasn't as smooth as possible, and how to set those expectations properly for our clients so that they do not feel like they were overpromised to and underdelivered. Those kinds of things, So I also like that as part of that other thing to work together with on.
Entrepreneurs just love fixing stuff, and it's fun to fix stuff and change stuff together.
Yeah, and just improve it, and the improving is so cool. But I also find one other thing that I just love that we have for each other is the accountability. That we know what we want to accomplish in our business or personally, whatever that thing is that we're accountable for. And then it's not like this nagging accountability. It's not like, it's not irritating. It's helpful.
Oh, absolutely.
It helps us get things done.
Yeah, well, like we've discussed in other podcasts, clear goal setting and things like that bring everybody onto the same page. It's an easy framework to work from.
Yeah.
And we're heading in the same direction. I do so much better knowing that you're crushing it in your role at the same time. The fact that because we work together, we are fully aware of the things that are troubling each other
Yes.
or holding us up in the business. That level of awareness and that accountability, we get help from each other faster.
Right.
I'm better for it because I can be more scatterbrained.
Yes.
And my brain moves in a different way. And so you help keep me on track.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm able to turn around to the same thing.
Yeah.
And if we were doing different things, like before,
Yeah.
I didn't know what you were struggling with in your business.
Right. And you can feel very alone when you're separate.
That's right.
Even though you may come home and share something with your spouse, you can still feel very alone because it's just not the same. I also love the fact that with kind of how we keep each other accountable too is sometimes you have to ask the question, is this really important?
Right.
Because if it's put on the list of things to do or even on the calendar and it just continually doesn't get done, we have to revisit it and ask, is this one important? Is this a priority? Is this truly helping us get in the direction or go in the direction that we want to? And if not, then scrap it because it's leaching energy from the person that task belongs to.
Oh, man. I would run wild with wild ideas when it was just me, and that wasn't serving my best interest and where I wanted to go, but it's what I had was just being with me. Last thing we wanted to touch on with the pro side of this is, you probably knew it was coming. Total freedom. So we've had some big family stuff come up recently. And
Put it lightly.
To put it lightly, people passing and just a lot of stress on the family, some changes in the business and changes in the house and all these changes. But with the big life events, it's been really nice that we can completely redesign the schedule for that week in case of emergency.
Right.
I had cousins come into town this week for an event, and I hadn't seen them in over 15 years. So I had to cancel, rearrange, and provide for 3 different meetings that day. I found out like 5 days before, but we were able to completely revamp that schedule for the day and not worry about it, not sweat it.
Right. We don't love that.
We don't love
Convenient for us.
No.
But it was nice that we were able to afford you that time to connect with those people that you haven't seen in years.
Mm-hmm. And that's a huge benefit of being in business together with your spouse because,
Sure.
you just had that flexibility. Imagine if one of us had a job and a boss that said, well, no, you can't go.
Building a business while raising a family can be tough to juggle for any entrepreneur. Knowing where to focus and how to spend your limited time is critical to your success. That's why Babies in Business has produced and made available a fantastic audio resource for you. It's titled 5 Key Focus Areas to Build a Profitable Business Without Burnout. During this short training, Rachel and Avram peel back the curtain on their secrets to building a business that serves your family, your dreams, and beyond. To download your free copy of the 5 Key Focus Areas, go to babiesandbiz.com/download. Again, that's babiesandbiz.com/download to get your free copy. We hope you enjoy. Now, back to the podcast.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, thinking about the day that we had yesterday, allowing you to go off to this event, and me, I'm here with Lincoln. We had the nanny come over in the morning, and then I had him in the afternoon. But it was me being willing to take that load, because that's what you do for your spouse. That's what you do with the person that you're with, is saying, yes, this is important to you. You're going to regret not going to this. We can make this sacrifice, whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm. It's nothing. Yeah. And that feels really good. Yeah. Feels really great, because I think that also builds into your relationship when you can see that someone needs something and you can be the provider of that thing that they need. It's not that you need to set aside your goals and things like that. That's not what we're talking about. But the freedom to do that has been really, really nice.
Yeah. So as a quick recap here on our pros, being united in your goals, that we put that first for a reason.
Yeah, because I think it really does support everything else.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 was another fun thing to work on together. Number 3 was the accountability that you get to have with each other.
Yeah.
And the last one that we just talked about was the freedom and flexibility aspect. So all these we felt like were huge pros for being in business together with your spouse, with your partner. Let's talk about some of the cons. I think everybody will be able to relate to these 4. I don't think it's just specific to any one couple.
No.
I think the big one, the sort of elephant in the room, and the one that people talk about and bring up a lot, is bringing work home with you. Yeah. And having and one or both people having a hard time turning off the business side.
Well, it can be very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Here you are trying to have a meal with them or have some family time, and business comes in, or they're grumpy, or whatever that looks like, whatever they're bringing back. It's super frustrating. And it's something that all the cons that we talked about or that we see as being a con, working with each other, is something that I find we just need to be aware of so that it doesn't take over, and that we can provide the ability to still thrive,
Yeah. Well, we know that as a baseline, you can pretty much have some rules for the road. Most days you can handle the ambiguity and things that get thrown at you. But there are days when the emotions run so high for one or both people that it really impacts home. And I think that's why we add it to the list, because sometimes you cannot avoid that spillover.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if it's something that feels urgent, that someone is wanting to place on you and make it feel urgent in your business. And that's very difficult to not bring that home or have a conversation about it, or for it to derail a day, or something like that.
The people side of it's always tough.
Exactly. So it can be very difficult.
With team members, right? Yeah. Team members, and there's just stuff with your team. It's not just clients, customers. It's everything.
Absolutely. No. And I think then that just kind of bleeds over into other things like scheduling. When you are working with your spouse and you have a personal life, you have all these different things going on.
Baby, kids at home.
Yeah, so many different schedules that you're actually juggling. It is important that you find a way to juggle it and talk about it and have parameters around what is and is not acceptable, I guess, or does and does not work.
Well, we're pretty good at it, and we've still run into, at least once or twice a month, it's you put what on that? Oh, man. Okay, well, that's going to be a tougher day or whatever.
That's not what I had planned.
That's not what I had planned.
like someone looks independently of the other person on the schedule and they're like, oh, this time is available. Then you schedule something. The other person had a totally different plan in their head for that day.
And that's
You know?
that's just another interesting dynamic of being all in, because again, if one person was doing something different,
Yeah.
a different business or a different career or whatever,
Right.
it doesn't matter the same way. They're working their
Kind of
business is
more
their
consistent.
day,
Yeah.
right?
And
Versus
kind of more
our day.
consistent, then yeah. Yep.
It's an interesting dynamic. Yeah, that's
It's
it.
very difficult. Can be very difficult. But as long as I find, as far as scheduling goes, the communication is so important.
We have that on
And
number 3
and
here.
that's what we want to talk about next, is that communication, no matter what it is, it's so important to talk about it. If something is not working for you, bring it up. Don't let it fester.
Another thing on communication that I think we haven't talked about on our podcast is, and of course I won't remember how to cite this, but I read this thing about a safety precaution they run in Japan with the subway trains. So there's a specific process that the subway, I think it's the Japan subways, that the guys there down next to the trains will run, that people think sounds silly. And what it is they will call out verbally the things that they're checking and the things that they're looking for before the doors close. And people are like, well, why don't you just look and you don't have to say anything about it? You could just raise the alarm if there was something wrong. But they found that the number of accidents they had were cut simply in half because they were calling things to attention and calling things out proactively.
Yeah, sure.
And I think about that with sports when I was growing up playing volleyball. If you're the one that's going for the ball, you're the one that's saying, I got it. You have to say. Otherwise, everybody ends up standing there and the ball just goes boom, right between 2 people, 3 people. I thought you had it.
Sure.
Well, nobody proactively said, I've got it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think about this as well. It's like, yeah, you do have to address things as they come up. Yeah. We've shared a lot about that on this podcast. On the other end of this, it's like the proactive communication. Oh, I thought I told you that.
Right.
Man, how much does that happen, especially when you're not getting sleep?
Right. Well, and I also think it's also important to remember, and we've talked about this in the podcast, is blame the process, not the person. That if something breaks down in communication, like the scheduling, maybe something got overscheduled or where it shouldn't be, or maybe there's, other issues, whatever that looks like, that if you can make sure that you bring it to attention and you don't shy away from talking about it, you're going to be just fine. But making sure that, like you said, with being proactive, it's so important to just see it through. Just talk.
Well, it's like, I could put a thing on the calendar for Lincoln on a Friday afternoon on a Monday and be like, well, clearly she'll see it.
Right.
Or I could put it on the calendar and then say, I put a thing on the calendar.
Correct.
There's a big difference.
Right.
Yeah. This last one here is interesting. Another con here is that sometimes the business can dominate the home, and that the home can end up dominating the business.
Right.
So I think what we meant when we first jotted this one down was that in those times of high stress, high emotion, maybe some history or some dynamics between you and your partner, one thing could spill over to the other.
Yeah.
So there's a reason that it's, happy wife, happy life, right? If mama ain't happy, usually the house ain't happy, right? Mom's the heart of the home. And so, well, what happens then? If mom's not happy or mom's really struggling and not getting the support that she needs, well then, how is hubby gonna crush in the business?
Right.
Now he's preoccupied, worried about, man, how can I get her support? She's been struggling. What's going on?
Yeah.
Trying to figure that out. Well, all that energy is going back to the house. Well, guess what? Somebody's going through the motions in the business, and the house is on fire.
Right.
And that's just something I think that has this ebb and flow.
Right.
That you end up having to manage the best that you can.
Well, yeah, and people talk about balance, and I've also seen that what is balance.
Sure.
And why worry about balance? Because there's really never going to be a balance of even. You think of a teeter-totter.
Yes.
Across. But really, in reality, life is very much a teeter-totter. One's up and one's down. One's up vice versa. And it could be the business. It could be the personal life. It could be husband and wife. It could be you're struggling and I'm not.
Right.
I'm struggling and you're not.
Right.
It could be all sorts of different things. And when you come together, and like we said earlier in this podcast, that when your goals are the same, you can have those open conversations, and you can make sure that if one is dominating the other, that you're still supporting the other, regardless of which is getting most of your focus.
Mm-hmm.
And still stay on track.
Yeah, I mean, you will still juggle the balls, but you cannot drop them.
Right.
You cannot drop them.
Well, and being aware. So working together, we're aware of all of those balls. There's the family, there's the personal, there's the kids, there's all these things. And then just having that high communication and having these things in mind that we've listed as cons, that we can just make sure that they don't overwhelm us.
Yeah.
And they don't take
the
majority of our energy, really.
I like what you shared about the teeter-totter.
Yeah.
When you zoom in, the teeter-totter is always down one way, lower than the other.
Yeah.
But I think overall what you strive for is when you zoom out far enough that it looks like it's kind of even.
Right.
I think that's what we're shooting for, right?
Yeah.
Because you have all these little seasons, and one day can be so different than the other.
Right. And with a teeter-totter, it's so easy to just take it to the next side or the next side, or even it out. And it's really just being aware, being conscious, I think. And your goals can make everything so clear. Are we marching towards them, or are we marching away from them? Is this going to help us get there, or is this not? And using that as your guidepost.
Yeah. Bring it back to balance.
Yeah.
So quick recap on the cons here. It's easy to bring business home and let it affect everything. Scheduling, so much more difficult than other setups.
Yep.
Communication, we put it here in the cons because it's just frequently the thing that you can blame that didn't go.
It broke down.
It broke down somehow, right? And that one side can dominate the other if you're not too careful. So we appreciate you tuning in for our pros and cons. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're in business with your spouse, with your partner, did we miss some?
Yeah.
Let us know on social media. You can find us at Babies and Biz Pod. We're also working on those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate your help going on there, clicking that 5-star, and taking just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. Please, just take 2 minutes. And write something nice about the podcast that you found valuable. It helps other viewers when they're looking to discover new podcasts understand what they're getting into when they click play. So with that, we appreciate you for listening in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Babies in Business Podcast. Who do you know that would benefit from hearing this episode? Share it with them and post about it on social media. You can find the show notes for this episode, free downloads, and connect with the rest of the community at babiesandbiz.com. We'll see you next time.